Hello, and welcome to another badass edition of the Drywall Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Harmon. Today on the podcast, we are super excited to have Ian Crosby of Masterpiece Finishers with us. Ian is a musician in a band, plays the mandolin and also the guitar. He is an expert drywall finisher up in West Virginia, and we found common ground on many different things.
In Michigan, I ran when I was a teenager. My mom lived on a golf course, and I would go after doing my homework and run the perimeter of the golf course, which I think was about 3.5 miles. So I would do that every day. And then they built a trail across the Courtney Campbell Causeway in Pinellas, which is a bridge across the bay from Clearwater to Tampa, and it's 9.9 miles long. So I aspired to run the length of that, which I did several dozen times after attempting across about 6 months. It took me to run the whole distance. And so I did that a lot. And then in Michigan, I was waking up at 3:30 and 4 in the morning and running 7 miles.
Crazy.
Running straight to the gym, and then I'd climb 110 floors on the stair stepper, imagining that I was climbing the World Trade Towers, because in some fantasy, I believe that some drywaller was doing his last patch.
Ian is a super awesome guy, and we're excited to have him on the podcast today. The Drywall Podcast is brought to you by Fresco Harmony. Fresco Harmony, making walls better since 2004. If you'd like more information on Fresco Harmony, you can email me directly at info@frescoharmony.com, and we'll send you a sample pack for free. The Drywall Podcast is available for your listening pleasure on Podbean, Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. Without further ado, Ian Crosby, the 13th podcast on the Drywall Podcast. Let's get into it.
Fresco Harmony. Well, I am on top of a hill in almost heaven, west by God, Virginia, and sometimes the cell phone service is a little spotty up here. So
Sure. Well, I like the audio. We've got Ian Crosby of Masterpiece Finishers. Great grandson of the famous Crosby of Crosby, Stills, Nash. A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people don't know that.
You said great grandson. Why? Because he's like now, right?
Because he's like 100, 110.
Right. And side note, like, I'm a huge Crosby, Stills, and Nash fan, and Neil Young, of course. I always have been, but I watched a documentary about him recently that portrayed him as sort of a villainous narcissist.
Yeah, he was kind of the douche of the band.
The douche, yeah. He's like totally too much bro, too much douche.
Great songwriter though, Buffalo Springfield.
And vocalist.
Yeah.
Yep. So
have you heard some of his a cappella stuff where it's just like him and the guitar? There's some albums out there where it's just him and the guitar, and it's just like the dude's next level for sure. So no shame. He's afforded himself some douchery.
Have I?
I don't know. We'll find out. More will be revealed, Ian. More will be revealed. We have a whole hour. To discuss Masterpiece Finishers, music. We'll just see where the wind blows us from Virginia and beyond.
West Virginia.
It's the same thing.
West Virginia. Seceded from the Union during the Civil War. So yeah, it's very important in West Virginia.
Yeah, you don't want to make that mistake.
Virginia is like button-up conservative horse owners.
Okay.
And West Virginia is like sweaty t-shirt, I'm out looking for my horse that ran
Okay.
away.
All right.
Sort of.
There's a fantastic documentary called This is The Story of Us, US. And
Okay.
it's a fast like crash course through history. I think it's on the History Channel. It's a fantastic like 10-part series about the history of the United States. It's really great.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah. You seem pretty young to me. How old are we looking at here?
I'm 35. I'll be 36 this year, and I have seemed young to myself too, up to like the
Yeah,
last couple of years.
sure. Yeah, injuries take a lot longer. Like I
How
have to
old are you now?
46.
Oh wow. Yeah,
Like
you still look.
I have to take way better care of myself. I have to be more conscious about what I eat, about
What
foam,
time you even?
foam rolling, exercise, and stretching, and like that sort of weird stuff. Like I never had to do.
Do you still do installations in the field?
Yeah, I just did that bathroom that I posted on the Fresco Harmony page. I don't know if you
Right.
follow. It was
Yeah, I
like
do.
JJ Ash bathroom.
What is JJ Ash?
It's a color.
Oh, okay. That's one of your colors, sort of
That's
like
J
exclusive.
that's JJ Ash right there.
It's gorgeous. I love it.
Oh
I
yeah.
still haven't had the opportunity to, turn one of my customers onto that product, but I'm definitely going.
It's a process. I was just texting with a guy. Let me see. One standby here. Brian Liddell was just sending me photos. Dude, check this out. This is his first run out of the gate.
Is he a drywall finisher?
Look at that, dude. He's
Yeah, I can see it. It's gorgeous.
Yeah, he's like, I'm like, damn, you're pretty good. And instead of saying like thanks, he said, what does he say? Yeah, I've done hand textures for 15 years. You know, he's like, yeah,
Which, okay,
fuck you.
so
He's like, of course I'm good. Like a true drywaller. He's like, fuck you, dude.
no, that's cool. And I don't know
Yeah.
how forgiving the product is, but I've studied in and out of drywall mud and across the map. Like it's a different animal in Michigan than in Florida. In Florida, green lid mud, tape bed skim. It's smooth, it's creamy, it sticks. Up north, you
Yeah.
got to use green lid mud for tape, and then they'll choose something else to bed and finish with, most notably like +3.
Yeah.
But where I come, it's just straight green lid mud. So I've had exposure to all different types of mud in different places, and I've done EFS and I've done wet plaster. We had an opportunity to install some Tadillac, and I didn't actually get the opportunity to proceed
Interest.
through that. But
You know that I might be interviewing Buck Buchanan. He wrote a book called this dude's like old school.
Cannon,
Yeah.
is he?
Have you heard of this guy?
No, I think the name sounds familiar, but I can't say that
So
I would accuse him of being a musician or something.
he knows all of the like drywall dudes. He's like an old salty guy that knows like a lot of people in the drywall community, but he wrote, so that's the history of EFIS. This book is all about
Okay.
like how EFIS came to be. It's very interesting. Love this conversation so far. It's super cool. Well, I mean, I like talking about Fresco, but this is how the podcast started, was because I would talk to dudes like you and we would start chatting about Fresco Harmony, and it would turn into this long conversation, like whether it's about texture or walls or mud or whatever. But the Fresco Harmony, the interesting part was the Fresco Harmony was always the catalyst to these unique drywall conversations. Right. And so part of me and the ego is like, oh, well, I don't want it to be about Fresco Harmony. Like, yeah, I want to market Fresco Harmony, but like, I don't want it to be all about Fresco Harmony. The other part of me is like, dude, shut up. It's like,
yeah, no, and I think that you should peddle the product, and also I think that it is a link that ties so many aspects of drywall together.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I'm interested in what you're doing, and now you have an example for me.
Yeah, so
So
this is steppe bowl. So see that corner? Look at that.
yeah,
So that's what
yeah.
so my original idea was, oh, that's
Okay.
cool. This is called 3/4 inch step bowl. It's a bull nose with a little step.
Okay.
How badass is that?
Right.
That's a corner
I've
bead.
seen it, but I've installed it.
I
Yep.
did 2 full houses. So the video's on YouTube. It's called The Venetian Corner by Fresco Harmony. I'll share the link with you or whatever. But it's me doing, like, I had to learn how you got to use a chop saw to cut this stuff. It's like you become the trim guy. It's really fun to work
Right.
with, really challenging though. So it was a hard sell for trim
That's
techs.
carpentry more than it is
It's kind of like,
finish,
yeah, because
right?
you got to put those in a corner. You got to make sure those miters are like right on. But then they also have concave step. Look at that.
Very, very
And
cool.
then of course, the chamfered. You've probably seen that.
You did this in Arizona or New Mexico, excuse me.
Yeah, so I had the opportunity to do 2 full houses, like hang finish tech and fresco harmony. So I had this concept like,
New
oh,
bill.
I was like, you could charge one low price for hang finish and fresco harmony instead of hang finish texture and paint.
I said I charge a singular rate for those things together. So it's sort of
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. So instead of the prime and paint, you would insert fresco harmony into that equation. And then
okay.
now instead of doing your texture coat, well, first of all, you only have to finish to a level 3 because you're doing a full 2 coats over the whole walls. You don't even have to glaze your angles. Just tape them because you're doing 2 full coats out of the angle. So you
Right.
just go finish your drywall to a level 3, zero sanding. Let me repeat, zero sanding. Like you don't have to sand. And then
I used to, I told them,
you go into your fresco harmony system, and then that's it. And so I was like, oh, you could charge one low price for that. And with the numbers, the way the numbers work, it's like 15 to 20% over paint and texture cost. That's money that goes
right.
into the drywall guy's pocket,
Right.
versus painting. And
And
so
then
I ran that system on 2 houses, but I was like, let's take it a step further. Check out the step bowl stuff. And the clients were like, that's fucking cool. You can install that shit. And I was like, yeah, I'll do it for an extra $1,000, like just to get the experience.
how
I
many
did
square feet was the house?
like 2,500 square. Dude, I was
Did I,
ordering the amount of work I did not charge enough, but I still turned a profit because of the fresco harmony.
so the reason I asked you if that was in New Mexico, because I'm from Florida and I spent um, several years doing professional drywall installations in Michigan. But I remember back to the days when I was just learning, and I've done a handful of houses where a client will buy a new house, this multi-million-dollar home that was originally built with bullnose bead, and the first thing they want gone is that bullnose.
Sure.
Done a handful of houses like that. We go in there and tear the bullnose out, put 90-degree bead
Sure.
to modernize it, right? Because it kind of dates it in
Yeah.
time. And
Yeah.
New Mexico, in my mind, it's like Florida and New Mexico share a lot of architectural styles because they're influenced by Spanish. I've only
Yeah.
been to New Mexico once. I did a community center in Hobbs, New Mexico. Do you know where that is?
Mm-hmm.
They built a giant community center, and I think the population of the city was only 150,000 at the time. So I imagined that they were expecting a population growth there.
Okay.
But I spent about 2 weeks there. It was just everything that all the cliches about the desert. It was cold at night, hot during the day.
Mm-hmm.
There were tumbleweeds blowing down the
Yeah.
road. It was cool. 2 weeks out there. I'd like to come out there again.
It's pretty cool. Well, if you want to come out and hang out anytime, Chad and I talk about that. Chad's been the only person to come down and like hang out with me and kind of train a little bit. He went back up to Newton, Illinois, which is where he's from. He's done over 25,000 he's done 25,000 feet of fresco harmony.
Very cool. And I
Yeah.
wanted to ask specifically, is it a ceiling application as well? I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially if you have heavy like broquet. I mean, any scenario where you want to cover up the existing ugly texture, you just do fresco.
So in Florida, and I share this with Josh. You know Josh, a drywall artist.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's at in Colorado Springs has a very similar drywall finish approach as Florida, where we do a lot of knockdown on the ceiling, a lot of orange peel on the walls.
Yeah.
We used to sell, like, the drywallers from New York will come down and say, you guys texture everything because you don't know how to finish. It's not true. You actually have to make the ceiling flat for knockdown, or
Mm-hmm.
else it flashes,
Yep.
you know. And the the more imperfections in the wall, the heavier the texture has to go, and it starts to get gaudy. So the
Yeah.
idea is very elegant, light orange peel on the walls, and it means you have to finish everything correctly, you know. So I spent
Yeah.
a long time learning how to match textures. I've done skip trowels, I've done sanded, I've done spray hopper, spray rig, you name it. I've put primer in my orange peel and sprayed the wall texture and prime in the same coat, you know,
Okay.
all that. I would like to invest some of how Fresco Harmony will react to some of those scenarios, because in
Sure.
Florida on the beach, people tend to love to add accents to their home. And
Yeah,
I really think that it could take off there.
that's a good way to start too. A lot of people, the biggest challenge, I think the biggest hurdle is some people will jump right in, but it's like the sales. That's what we end up talking about. It has nothing to do with the application. Like you can do it. It's watch a video or call me or whatever. Like these
Do
guys
you
can.
use trowels? You do,
You
don't
can
you?
use a. I use a pool trowel, a 14-inch pool trowel. That's a tip that I picked up from my boss in Crested Butte. We were doing what was called the Santa Fe texture up in Colorado.
Oh, cool.
And it's like, you use a pool trowel and that's how you get sort of see those lines on that wall.
I do. Yeah, and
Okay.
I like it. I
So
recognize it.
so the base coat is like you're doing pool trowel and you create these like lightning bolts. Well, then when you put the second coat on, you pull it tight and it creates purposeful flashing. That's all it
Sure.
is. Then when you seal it, it finishes it and like wet sands it at the same time because you're troweling on a wet like it's a high viscosity, but you're troweling on a sealer. That's the third coat, and that compresses and it finishes the wall and kind of makes it wipeable.
So it's sort of like a modernized, refined form of a Cadillac. Do you know what that is? You ever looked into that?
Mm-mm.
Moroccan plaster. So there's Cadillac applications in Morocco that have been there for thousands of years. Their exterior, and what they did was use the lime cycle. Right? Are you familiar with that?
No.
So the lime
And
cycle
what are you
is
saying? You're not saying Cadillac, you're saying Tadillac.
Cadillac, Tadele, no, TadelekT. Is she hip to the drywall podcast, or is she,
Oh,
she like
she
drywall?
doesn't
Just
know,
more
dude.
drywall.
She doesn't know the power I hold, I wield.
Gypsosis. It's
Yeah,
gypsosis, as Ben
dude.
calls it. I should
I've been
interview him. He's a really good
Gypsosis.
guy.
I've been with her for it's 11 years. We've been married for 8. Yeah, if she never heard about Fresco Harmony again, she'd be fine with that.
So when I was working with Ray, I don't know if you know the Cosmic Drywall in Michigan. Shout out to Ray.
Uh-uh.
Um,
I like that
so
though.
we partnered up in Michigan. He is more so a drywall finisher, and I'm sort of like more of a carpenter, but I
Okay.
finish, and I finish well. So we paired up really well, went to work together as carpenters, finish our own work, prime it, do all that. And man, after it's my first drywall partnership that I've ever had in my career. And after a year and a half of talking about drywall every single day, I couldn't even take it anymore, and I'm under the spell. so I get it.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. My friends were like, dude, you always talk about this was like 8, 9 years ago. They're like, you always talk about Fresco Harmony. Nobody wants to
Yeah,
hear
you
it.
just
We're done.
good. We're talking about Fresco
I don't
Harmony
want
a
to lose
lot.
I don't want to lose Cadillac though.
Cadillac.
That vein of conversation was interesting to me because you're saying sort of this methodology with joint compound reminds you of a
It's
product
a
called
modernized, refined Cadillac. So what Cadillac is, the lime cycle is you have limestone found in natural deposits on Earth, right? So humans thousands of years ago discovered that if you put this limestone through a series of different forms, let's say, and then apply it to the wall and allow it to dry, then it goes from an earthen substance to a workable material, and it turns back to that earthen substance again
okay.
on the wall. Plasterers were a different animal. Those guys are gone. Like we replaced that with drywall. It's a better product, which we could talk about for days.
Yeah.
But so the idea with the lime cycle is that the earthen substance is pretty much designed by nature to withstand natural elements.
Okay.
So in Morocco, they took that and applied it to their exterior walls, and these walls are thousands of years old.
Okay.
With no cracks in them, and they're waterproof. So Ray and I were approached to do a Cadillac bathroom in a multi-million-dollar home, and I think it was Grosse Pointe. I think it's like $25 a square foot or $30 a foot. And the reason is, and what you said that reminded me of Cadillac when you were describing the process of applying Fresco Harmony, is that final seal coat kind of burnishes the bed coat.
It compresses,
which is an important part of the process, and they utilize that in Cadillac with like you're supposed to take a stone that's actually of a certain density and literally physically burnish the wall for countless hours compressing it. And that's actually the part that gives it its longevity.
And they do that now. They just do it with the edge of the trowel. I mean,
with
you see those
material,
whatever. I mean, I've seen them doing it with there's a lot of different types of material out there. I'm digging more and more. I get into this, the more I'm like digging. Maybe I'll have like some plaster dudes on, and we can
Stucco, ephes, plaster. They're all different animals that utilize the same process. Drywall finishing is the most unique of those. Plaster, you have to create your own product. So you have to start from a scientific standpoint of understanding the lime cycle. They put their own gypsum to lime to water to, there's a combination of material.
That's all fine and dandy and it's wonderful, but that's the exact thing that I didn't want to do. I was like, what? Just dump the fucking color in the mud and go. Like, why are we doing this? We can walk on the moon, but the best idea that we've come up with for walls is fucking orange peel and paint. Here, you can have a boring ass flat wall. It's really difficult to achieve, or you can have texture. Choose.
So in Florida, they want to go slick. We'll talk them into it. So knockdown kind of looks gaudy. You got a few guys who really know how to spray an elegant knockdown, and then most of the guys that spray knockdown just fog in the whole surface, pull it together. Right. So the more high-end customers they'll buy slick on the ceiling, flat and smooth. Orange peel on the walls gives it a very elegant feel. And the idea, my school of thought, is that you want the ceiling to disappear. You know what I mean? I think that's why ceilings are painted white. Hey, I would love to come out there, man. I've traveled for about the last 10 years. I've been to 40 states in my truck, and that's doing commercial kitchen installations. I've never went somewhere other than my home state and Michigan to do drywall. I framed some houses in West Virginia, didn't do drywall here, but Man, I would love to come out there
And you're
and
kind of
literally
a,
do a project.
yeah, you're kind of like a vagabond.
In a way, I mean, I'm aiming back home. I lived in Detroit for almost 5 years. Shout out Detroit.
Yeah.
And West Virginia has always been a stopping point for me, but my grandparents are getting old. My niece is growing up and everything. So I'm imagining myself in Florida, hometown, family, and try to duplicate the drywall company model that we were so successful with in Detroit
Yeah.
in Pinellas. But in the meantime, I'm I'm sort of like vagabondish. So when you go and touch something up later, um, do you use just the vinyl product application, or
The
does it
color.
have?
I use the colored mud, the all-purpose. Like
And then
so.
you mentioned the very last stage, though, is like sort of a product that seals it, burnish it. Is it a different product, or is it just
Yeah,
more?
it's a clear acrylic is what it is.
Okay,
It's a high viscosity, clear, water-based acrylic. It's clear.
that's trowel.
Yeah, yeah. It's thick. It's like yogurt. It's cool. It's our own product, and it comes in satin and gloss.
Have you ever
So,
done anything with gold flake? I
yeah,
just asked the homeowner here yesterday if he wanted some gold flake in the
yeah.
ceiling. He said, not this time, but next time for sure.
These
Okay.
dudes that are just selling it here, they started selling it. Eric Vasquez, he's a union dude. They started doing walls here in Albuquerque. He brought a client to the client was on the fence, really wanted plaster. They brought him to my showroom, and I sold the whole house to him.
You just have to explain it to him.
It's all sales. It's
And as far as customers kind of get their mindset on something that was described to them in a certain light.
yes.
And I will tell my customers how perfectly engineered drywall actually is. I want to
Yeah.
say it's a space material, right? On the other hand, um, Connor, he's South Shore Drywall on Instagram, said I do the opposite. He said I describe to my customers how imperfect this product is. So the drywall is a really interesting animal because it
Yeah.
has its downfalls, and all in all, at the end of the day, it's probably the most modern technology in building materials, and at the same time it's just still spreading mud on the wall.
It's well, and imagine like the monochromatic world of drywall mud. All of a sudden, like somebody has the gall to start coloring it. I'm using a colorant, so water-based color, and so you're not really upsetting the chemical makeup. It doesn't matter how much water you put in. The color consistency, if you're using ready mix, is uncanny. From batch to batch, it's perfect. Like that's something you can't get with plaster because they're using these powders and things. And even
Right.
acrylics don't color perfectly like paint. Like, like so all purpose, like lightweight, what we use, the blue box, it has a white base, colors perfectly from batch to batch. Like that is so awesome. Like it's a big deal.
Would it be the same from New Mexico to Florida? Because that
Yes.
drywall mud is manufactured regionally
Yeah, the
by
biggest thing
natural
recent
materials.
the recent thing was that the base color of the product in Colorado, we have 5 distributors in Colorado. They were worried about the red rocks because it was getting made and the quarries had different like color. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
well, it should be okay. The only issue you're going to run into there is patching if there's a discoloration. I've been using the USG lightweight all-purpose and I think that they tint it because it has a different base from Lowe's to Home Depot. And most of the drywall supply shops, your Chaparrals, your GMS, and like your L&Ws, they carry the whiter base, same as Home Depot. But Lowe's, the blue box, same product, has a yellow base. And I think they do that with the big box stores.
Interesting.
And I think they actually tint it. So you get a little different color there, but as long as you're using the same mud from project to project, you'll be okay.
Just document it in your paperwork.
Yeah, I just use the same mud to
Okay.
thwart that part of the equation. It's like, and to answer your question, I've done a job in New York and used in a bucket. So I use the lightweight, comes in a bucket, not a box over there. No color difference. And I took a sample with me. Like,
You've traveled all over the nation doing that stuff.
yeah, a few states, but I've also sold it to different states, and coloring is not an issue unless I screw up a bottle. It's just so not an issue. That's one of the beauties of it. And also custom colors. Like, somebody can send me a Sherwin-Williams color, and for $100, we'll match it on right off the website.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then you'll get, for $100, you'll get a vial or a color pack, and you can mix that color pack into a box of mud and make 3.5 gallons. And I'll send you a sample, because I have to make a sample when I do the custom color. And so we have lots of custom color on the custom color page. Then the product, then that product lives on there. We'll make Crosby, beige. That'll live on the custom color page.
Oh, yeah.
So that 5 years from now, when you have to do a frickin' patch, you can just buy it.
Well, that's important to know. That reminds me of like Corian on DuPont website.
Yep.
Like that's important. And what's the name of the webpage?
FrescoHarmony.com.
Amen. I haven't even been on it. Like, I stay so busy, man. I've been on the road. Yeah. It's more of a philosophy. That's where the gypsosis comes in.
Yeah.
It's more of a philosophy than it is a building material.
Yeah. And I love the conversation that it opens up too, because it's like, why the hell haven't they? How come USG's not coloring joint compound? Why? How come I have to use a freaking red top, which is stupid? Why can't I just color the damn joint compound?
When I first saw your product on Instagram, I got on Instagram probably 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, by Ray's recommendation, Cosmic Drywall, because we were trying to build private clientele and stop working for contractors, stop doing commercial work, but get in a field where we can face-to-face give a private client a piece of art in their home, for example, right?
Okay.
So Ray had the brilliant idea of promoting ourselves on Instagram, and we had 2 different companies partnered up, so that allowed the room for 2 different personalities, 2 different pages, and we met so many friends, local contractors that do private clients, right, and private clients on Instagram. I don't remember where I was going with this.
We were talking about marketing Fresco Harmony. You were talking about doing something flashy, working with not commercial, working with probably homeowners more, because it's not as much of a pain in the ass.
Okay. Yes. When I first saw your product on Instagram, it presents itself as a long established high-end product that I feel like I've heard the name of before.
That's
first
good.
Saw it, I'm like, Fresco Harmony, I think I know what that is. Now, more investigation, no, I've never heard of that before.
Yeah.
But it just presents itself that way. Like something that you just have to have in your high-end home.
That's cool. That part of that that's branding. That's good branding, but it can be detrimental though, because Lydia, Drywall Shorty, you've followed her. She's up in Bozeman, Montana. I got to meet her at Intex, and I was talking to her about Fresco Harmony, because I was like, dude, you crush it, and you would love doing this. It's really fun. And she was like, I was like, no, it's just it's just color in the mud, man. You smear that shit on the wall, go make money and have fun. And she was like, oh, I thought it was like a Venetian plaster system.
Right.
And I was like, no. And that's the only detriment to the branding that we've done. I think it comes off as like a high-end system, and it's just colored mud. That's why I'm always like, dude, it's just colored mud. It's not, this is simple. Anyone can do it. Like,
which is kind of hard to wrap your mind around. Like, why, like you said, why is that so innovative all of a sudden? You know?
But this is the beauty to the podcast, is that what comes up a lot is the resistance and the energy in drywall, this tunnel thinking. And that's why I want to talk about the music a little bit if you want. Music is pretty important to you. Are you playing in a band or anything like that?
We're actually currently forming a band. My buddy here is picking up the banjo for the first time in his life. I've been sharing guitar licks with another friend of mine for 15 years, but we've never actually meaningfully pursued anything. But since I started playing the mandolin about a year and a half ago, I lived in Michigan for a lot of years and I didn't even own a guitar. Like, there was a lull in my musicianship.
Yeah.
And then I bought a mandolin and I kind of jumped right back in.
Nice.
And so last year I've written a handful of songs and been to a couple of concerts that were inspiring, and so we're trying to put some things together. I was in a band when I was like 19, but we didn't ever actually play live. But the pursuit is to, really like crush it, write some good songs, start shredding our instruments like we mean it.
Yeah. And, do you write music?
Yeah, I do.
You write songs?
Write songs, write lyrics, write leads.
Do you sing?
Share that. I do.
Okay.
And I've been losing my singing voice probably over the last 4 or 5 years. Like, I lost the high register in my voice. And I believe I had COVID twice. And I'm congested now, which I wasn't ever before. Like, I run long distances.
Okay.
I breathe really well. I might even take a year off from running, still not have any problems with my breathing. I quit smoking cigarettes when I left Michigan.
Okay.
Enjoy one every now and then, but congested right now.
Yeah.
And that's hurt my singing voice. So I'm actually going to start taking singing lessons. I don't know if it's going to do me any good.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Well, if you're a singer, then, when we were kids learning to play guitar, it was like, Stevie Ray Vaughan didn't take lessons, so we're not gonna either, and it was kind of real bullheaded because looking back, should have just took lessons.
Yeah, that's Steve. Yeah. If you can do what Jimi Hendrix can do without taking lessons, well, then you probably don't need to take lessons. But if you're not that fucking good, then maybe take some lessons.
Jimi Hendrix is actually jazz trained.
Really?
He's a classical trained.
No way. He's
music theory. Yes. Look it up, man. He's not.
Well,
just
I know his drummer's a jazz drummer.
Right.
Mitch Mitchell.
Very trained musicians. That's why they paired those guys up together, because they can read music. They can play exactly what
I always heard Jimi Hendrix couldn't read music, but his stuff is very amazing.
He's a jazz guitarist, and I don't know if you've ever ventured into jazz guitar. It's incredible. It's incredible.
I mean, Django Reinhardt, that's about it.
Without understanding music theory, you can't be a jazz guitarist. I was in a jazz band in high school, and the teacher actually dumbed down the material for me. Dumbed it down. I played guitar. Was the only guitar in his jazz band in like 10 years.
Oh, wow.
He wrote my own music for me, separate from the rest of the band.
Very cool.
Perturbed about that, but yeah, it's really difficult. So
I took a semester of classical guitar in college, and it was interesting. But I get bored with I don't want to practice it. And then I'm
It's
like,
like engineering in a way, more than
yeah.
it is art. If you start to
Recently,
learn,
we got a piano, a stand up for my brother-in-law, like just a stand up full piano.
you've been
Uh,
playing.
yeah, I started plunking on it, and I took a couple lessons, like just through YouTube, and it's amazing. Like then I went back to the guitar, and it was like, like it changed the guitar. Like I was like, oh, a C is like that's interesting. Oh, a C is an F, a G, what a C is these three notes.
Right.
It kind of
That's all
like
music theory.
it kind of put
So
that, but like just a little bit of the piano, it was amazing how it shifted how I looked at the guitar.
it's firsts and fifths are what make your most basic chord. So a mandolin is tuned in all fifths. You can strum an open mandolin and it's a chord. You can't do
Okay.
that with a guitar. You can do that with a guitar, but you're in a certain key,
Is that the
right?
same?
So
It's not the same as a ukulele.
I've owned one and I know that I tuned it, but I don't remember. I don't
You
think it's
do
the
you
same as
play
a.
do you play the ukulele a lot?
I do, but I don't own one anymore. So,
They're so cool.
but I would like, and to me, it doesn't have the same appeal as a mandolin because I'm like, I guess I must have some bluegrass in my blood or something. I'm
Yeah,
Irish,
yeah.
not Samoan
Oh, the
or.
mandolin is just freaking. I have two, but I play them
Yeah.
I play them a little bit.
So that actually opened up the guitar for me. I played
Okay.
guitar for 20 years and built bad habits. And then, so real quick background here. He's an amazingly successful young man, and he bought himself a piece of property up here on this hilltop, and we have built him a house up here way cheaper than him buying something that still needs repaired. And I attempted to sell him some Fresco Harmony, but he's kind of like stubborn, like a drywaller on some things. And we did so many custom finishes in here. Beams. See, the beams weren't perfectly flat. And so I had to go along and float out the ceiling everywhere to, which way am I going right here?
Yep.
To match the profile of the beams.
Yep.
Get around.
Ian Crosby, Masterpiece Finishers. Thank you for being on the Drywall Podcast today. If you had a pearl of wisdom that you could bestow upon the drywall community, globally, nationally, what would you say to these crazy drywallers out there?
Now this is going to be straight blasphemy from my school of thought, but in my age, I'm realizing that there's only a finite amount of energy that one human can have across time, and drywallers are compelled to go hard 100% all the time. Balance. It's a thing that I can hear them say to me in Detroit over and over again. Balance.
Yeah.
Just treat your body good. Because my back is going out. I'm only 35. I'm worried because I don't get the chance to stop doing drywall. So
Right.
all the drywallers out there, balance. Because you'll run into a brick wall before you see yourself slowing down.
Take care of your body, drink water. Thank you for being on the Drywall Podcast today, Ian.
Thank you for having me, man. So interesting.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And have you listened to a couple podcasts yet? Have you listened to one yet?
I haven't. I've listened to the excerpts that are on YouTube.
Okay. Check out the Joe Koenig one. That one's pretty funny.
Okay.
With
Right.
the owner Trimtex. That one's pretty good. Daniel Osborne's is pretty good, but
have you had or been approached by Drywall Nation? I don't know what the guy's name is. Do you know his name?
Brian. Yeah, I've talked to Brian. I know him. Yeah, we might I've reached out to him. He's kind of harder. People like him or Drywall Shorty, people that have a lot more influence are harder to get to. I'm kind of like going after whoever, but with it's kind of like a tactful um direction. There's certain characters that I've seen you kind of because you asked. And so I was like, oh, he's interested in being on the podcast. I'll put him on the
Absolutely.
list. And then I have different lists that I go through, and I was like, oh, I'll pluck him next. I'll pluck him, but there's no real rhyme or reason. I'm not going for masterpiece finishers because you have a billion followers. I'm interested in your story, and I think that's what drywallers want to hear.
Right.
Um, they want to hear the story. I mean, you had some tremendous insight about products, and we got into the weeds of Fresco Harmony, but that's okay. Um,
We're always going to do that. We're
yeah,
always
especially with me. I mean, it's kind of what I do, but my background's drywall finishing. We didn't talk about whether you do hand finishing or run the tools or anything like that. And
Yeah, we're going to keep that all a secret.
I get into it less too. Like I get into it's weird where the conversations go. I never know, how they're going to pan out. My conversation with I talked with yesterday was Robert McLaughlin. He was very interesting. He was an interesting character. And he was in the army
You
and
guys
like
talk about drywall?
yeah, a little bit. We talked about his how he runs his business a lot,
Yeah.
he like and then he like had some issues with his business, and then he lost this business and he's starting a new business, and like the challenges of running a business. And
Which is also very interesting to a
yeah,
drywaller because let's say you're just like an avid drywaller and that's your life's mission. It doesn't necessarily make you a good business person.
no,
You know,
and
that's a
no,
whole different thing that you have to wrap your mind around and to be able to pair the two together. That was one reason that Ray and I were successful because I'm just gung ho drywaller. Just send me in there with a screw gun with a bag of screws and a stack of drywall and
yeah,
don't talk. I'm doing it. I'll come. You go talk to the clients. You figure, and I'm good at math too. So we had a good balance, but that was because there was two people and one of them was doing hot, heavy business work.
yeah, and
And
that's
I like
me.
to do drywall. I prefer to do drywall to
Oh,
the
and
business side.
we talked about one job at a time, not getting, and that goes back to your balance, not getting overextended too much, keeping it sort of simple. I do one job at a time and I'll book out versus piling up a bunch of work and then being crazy. Like,
I'm on free projects right now. And
yeah,
I let God like design where's best for me to go. And that's just the
yeah,
position that I'm in right now. Like
yep,
there's different models of a drywall career. Right
yep,
now, I have a project that's pending the HVAC technician, and he's known to be slow to respond. So I'm like buying my time because I have these other things to do. And then I know that that client is going to call me and say, all right, I'm ready. And usually it's at the perfect time. In the
yep,
meantime, I have people calling me from different states asking me if I will come there and do work. And
yeah,
it's hard. It's just so hard to turn it down because
yeah,
I want to be able to do something for my client. You know,
yeah, yeah,
I have to say I just can't do it. I'm not good at scaling. I haven't
yeah,
met that 9-year-old kid who just had a baby who just got to make a check and he didn't finish school or something like that, you know. So
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
busy stuff by myself and
yeah.
it's tough.
See that, I mean, that's definitely an interesting business. That's an interesting direction as well. But I try to let the conversation take its own direction, um, and not interject too much. This one I interjected a lot because it was interesting. We were talking about Fresco a little
And
bit.
you have a lot to say.
Hmm.
We could probably talk for another 3 or 4 hours. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
interested in it. And then, so what I was going to say is that I'm looking forward to the day when I hear about Fresco Harmony anymore.
Come down, and if you do, we'll make sure we have something, or there's at the very least you can, we can hang out in the studio and work on samples, and you can learn about the product, and I can do a private training. That's the very
I want to
least.
do that.
But I would get you
I
on the
definitely want to do that.
I would get you on the job. Like, my hope is that there's a job, because that's really how you see it. These
Right.
guys that host these like trainings, and you're doing a little bit you're doing a little sample with like marbling and shit. It's like, okay, that's fine and dandy, but like, I mean, there's got,
Even if it's just one wall, like an accent wall in somebody's office or something like that, I can see how that would be a better application. Now,
yeah,
I spray texture, I spray paint, and I know the ins and outs of masking. I work in people's finished multi-million-dollar homes. So as
yeah,
far as clean and creating lines and edges and all that, that's pretty
yep,
much already in the bag. And
yep.
skimming walls with mud, I mean, I got that in the bag.
There's some suggestions that I would have for you around sales. Now, I wouldn't just go try to sell it. The first thing that you need to do is make a sample out of that sample pack that I sent you. That's out of the gate. You can't sell it unless they see it. I've got a crate of samples in my truck that I carry to every project. That's what sells it. Next, you don't sell it to that dude. You be like, I'm gonna do an accent wall for you.
Right.
If you want, here's a color chart. You should have a color chart, right? You pick a color. Here's what it looks like when it's done. So you have a Merriman beige sample. You make that sample on a piece of masonite or whatever. 16 by 21 is a good size, inches. And you make a sample, and you be like, here's what it looks like. Here's the color chart. If you're interested, I'll just do a wall for you.
Right.
And just do it. And that
you
generally
could throw that in where you would have a finished drywall application. Let's say I'm doing a whole house. I'm gonna finish that wall anyway. Prime and paint it, most likely.
Yes.
You just do this one wall for you and this other product. It'll be finished. If you don't like it, then I didn't get burned. You didn't get burned.
No, if you don't like it, we'll paint. We'll texture it and paint it. If you don't like it, it's no big deal. We can paint over it. There's no risk. So don't get lost in the whole sales. Like, I mean, that's what sells it. Like, allow the product to do the work for you.
Plaster is made for, plaster is designed to reflect radiant heat. So this was before like HVAC systems were engineered. Drywall has to be insulated behind, but you can create a system that is much more, what would we say, efficient to heat, because there's the application of insulation, where plaster walls that were built during historic times do not have any insulation. The plaster itself is designed to reflect radiant heat.
Nowadays, too, it has to be like, you have to have special plaster board and lath and brown coat and all that stuff. It's a nightmare.
And if you penetrate it, then it loses its quality.
Interesting. Yeah, this is just a finish over your drywall that you normally put up. So those are selling points. So that's what I would, just listening to his message, like, that's already what I'm calculating in my brain. Now, the fact that we're way cheaper than plaster, that means you can do more. If he's looking at just a groin vault ceiling or an accent wall, I'm like, dude, we have a $1,200 minimum. But at these prices, you can do a lot more fresco harmony. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about doing all your common. And I'm instantly upselling.
I'm going to introduce it in Pinellas County, Florida, where there's many retirees that own multi-million-dollar beach condos and freestanding 3,000 and 4,000 square foot homes. A lot of retired ball players. A lot of people move to Florida from Hollywood.
Anywhere, dude. Anywhere that somebody wants nice walls. This is not a Southwestern thing. But the first step is that sample, man. Mix that color pack, get familiar, and that'll get you excited about it. It'll be like, oh man, this stuff is cool. Excited. Like, I want to do, take it. And then a lot of people, if they have an office, like John Zulke, or, if they have an office or a home, they can do a wall in their own home or office, and then now you got a place where you can bring people and show them what it looks like.
Right.
That's another great tactic. And then I love the advice of balance. Like Ian Crosby, masterpiece, the master of balance.
So I'm not real good at that. That's why people have given me that advice across time. So they're gonna call bullshit on me. They're gonna be like, this is the guy who's up at 3:30 in the morning running 7 miles, and then at the first guy to the drywall job with a stack of drywall in his truck, and he doesn't want to take lunch. In Michigan, I ran when I was a teenager. My mom lived on a golf course, and I would go after doing my homework and run the perimeter of the golf course, which I think was about 3.5 miles. So I would do that every day. And then they built a trail across the Courtney Campbell Causeway in Pinellas, which is a bridge across the bay from Clearwater to Tampa, and it's 9.9 miles long. So I aspired to run the length of that, which I did several dozen times after attempting across about 6 months. It took me to run the whole distance. And so I did that a lot. And then in Michigan, I was waking up at 3:30 and 4 in the morning and running 7 miles.
Crazy.
Running straight to the gym, and then I'd climb 110 floors on the stair stepper, imagining that I was climbing the World Trade Towers, because in some fantasy, I believe that some drywaller was doing his last patch when the building fell.
Interesting.
In and off over metal studs with 5/8 drywall. He was cussing because he had to go back down to his truck 90 floors down. So I stair step 110
damn
floors,
fire drills. He's all mad because he's like, stupid fire drill.
And I'm on my way up there to save my drywall brother and let him know he needs to come down. And so I was doing that every day. And then my back actually started going out. I was diagnosed with sciatica of lumbago, I think is what it is.
Weird.
Which is a certain region of sciatic nerve pain.
Yeah, running is hard on the joints and body.
Oh, that's what I was talking about with Josh, who also the drywall artist, who also has dealt with sciatica. And I asked him, do you think that maybe me running 7 miles has actually done more damage than good? And he said, I think it probably did a little bit of both. So I've got to reevaluate that.
I do ice baths.
Oh, I'm such a wimp when
I've done 4. I've done 4 this week. Like cold.
Really? I have a friend who recommends that, but man, I'm such a wimp when it comes to the snow and the ice.
They're hard.
Cold.
There's nothing easy. Those dudes you see doing ice baths, they're hard. It's really hard practice. But the dopamine release and what it does for your body and everything afterwards, it's just amazing. Like, I love it.
Better than drugs, huh?
Yeah.
With no withdrawal symptoms.
Right. And less expensive. Ian Crosby, masterful masterpiece finishers. Cool. Thank you for being on the Drywall podcast today. Hopefully we'll hook up soon and you'll come to Albuquerque, and we'll do,
yes, sir.
When you come down to Albuquerque, maybe we'll do a live podcast too. Anybody that comes down here to do a training, we'll do a live podcast and give a shout out. And we'll talk to you soon. Have a fantastic day.
Thanks for having me. And again, shout out the Bean team. You know who you are.
Yeah.
And Drywall podcast, man. It's the best new thing going on the internet.
Thanks, man. We'll talk soon. Have a great day.
All right. You too, Nick. See you.
All right, bye. Special thanks to Ian Crosby for being on the Drywall podcast today. We appreciate your time, and we hope you the very best in the future. With us today, special guest, the Devil, to help take us out.
Thank you, Nick. That was a fantastic podcast. I really enjoyed listening to Ian. Seems like a good guy. Hopefully I won't see him in the near future. I appreciate you once again having me on the show. Back to you.
Thank you, Devil. Always a pleasure. The Drywall Podcast is brought to you today by Fresco Harmony, making walls better since 2004. If you'd like more information on the Drywall Podcast, Fresco Harmony, or anything, feel free to contact me at info@frescoharmony.com. We appreciate you listening to the Drywall Podcast today. Remember, keep drywalling.